every day is a winding road because when I have 2 deadlines or 3 deadlines in a day, I wake up humming that song.
You do?
Yeah, because that day is
God.
going to be a winding road. So, I mean, that song has actually helped me through. So,
Yeah, that song actually was a. I had worked with Crowded House, and it was one of my first big tours. I loved working with them. We shared a drummer at a time when their drummer, who was really suffering depression, had to leave the tour. And during the making of that record, this drummer, Paul, who I knew pretty well, hung himself in the park in Sydney. And it just absolutely devastated all of us. And my engineer that I was working with was their engineer / dear friend. We were all just gutted by it. And so that was what that lyric came from. He had a daughter he'd named Sunday, and there were just little things that were references to him. And one of the things was sometimes I feel like a stranger in my own life. And so that became the inspiration for that song. Happy, upbeat song. That was the inspiration for it. And I wasn't going to put it on the record because I thought, well, it's just too lightweight and too, I don't know, I just thought it was too pop. And my engineer, Chad, who had also worked with them at great length, said, you have to put that on the record. It means something to me. I feel like a stranger in my own life sometimes. And so I put it on the record, and it wound up being successful. Yeah. You never know. You never know what's going to mean something to somebody. And then you never know, too, when you write something and you're out on stage and you weren't actually initially sure why you wrote it, how life introduces different events to sort of come back around and teach you.
Like, what kind of song does that happen to?
Well, Redemption Day was one of those songs. You know, I sat down and wrote that song in just a really broken-hearted state. I had been engaged and I blew it. You know, I just was really sad, and I sat down after having made this trip to Bosnia with the First Lady. I got home from that trip, my relationship fell apart, and I sat down to write a song about my relationship breaking up, and really wanting to write a great broken-hearted song, and I just was killing myself to try to write something poetic. And then, boom, I just started playing this kind of Dylan cadence, and in 7 minutes, I had 6 stanzas for this song, which is not really, I don't usually write, in fact, I never write like that. I never write stanzas that are like full stanzas that are like Dylan-esque, and it wound up being that song. And it actually wound up being a really big thing for me because ultimately Johnny Cash recorded it. But it became a big thing for me for a number of reasons, because I really believe so heavily that war is just a faction of, well, it's created on so many levels outside of accomplishing anything. There's so many political reasons as to why we go into a war. And that particular song was having visited Bosnia, where we went in, I guess, to kind of continue our stronghold in what was a very important European stronghold where oil existed. And yet what was happening at the same time was this mass genocide in Rwanda, and yet we just watched it happen. And just that idea of why we make the decisions that we make, like why go into Iraq. You know, all these, you know, it's just continued to repeat itself throughout history. So that song, even though it was written in 96 or something like that, it just keeps coming around for me. And when Johnny Cash recorded, he asked me about it, and I can't remember what the events were when he recorded it, but he just, you know, he said, I want to know what every line means, and he wanted to know so that when he went to sing it, he could believe in it. So it's pretty interesting.
You investigated. You've collaborated with lots of people. I mean, do you learn from them? Do you?
Always. I mean, always.
Any lessons you want to share?
Well, you know, when you work with the greats, it's always a learning experience. It's not always what you think it's going to be. And like I've sung with Dylan quite a few times, and that's always a learning experience, because he doesn't ever play the same thing twice, you know. And one of the things that I learned from him, a couple of things, one of the things that he said once, we were talking about hard rain's gonna fall. And I just said how much I love that lyric, and he had said that he felt like the first line, every line in that song could be the first line of a new song. And I thought, God, what a great, if you wrote every song and every line in it had enough meaning to create a new song, I mean, that's just, those songs are fat, you know. They're lean, you know, they don't, you know, there's no just needless rhyming in there. The other thing that he said was that he felt like he makes a record, but that doesn't mean those are the best versions of the songs. He's always chasing the best version by being out on the road. Now, whether that's true, you know, I think sometimes people are out on the road because they don't like to go home, but I like that idea. And that was definitely me for a while.
It was you.
Yeah, definitely. You know, and I like that idea. I like the fact that just because you recorded it, and that is one of the beautiful things about YouTube and about people bootlegging. You know, I love great bootlegs because sometimes you just hear the most amazing solos and the most amazing vocal renditions. You just, you know, it's almost as good as being in the room.
Well, but also all of your bloopers are out there. That doesn't bother you?
Well, I don't like the bloopers that are just meant to be, you know.
Right, just to be embarrassing.
Embarrassing, yeah. And I you know, I still hope that our nature is not to take joy in people fucking up or whatever. But you know, interestingly, I have been known to fuck up my lyrics a lot, and it's all out there. So you know, I'm human.
Do you ever improve them?
Oh, I've written some crazy outlandish stuff. So much so that my old bass player used to like, I would see him bending over with his bass, knowing that if he laughed any harder, he was just going to pee in his pants.
One thing you told me in Tennessee, which I didn't follow up on, was you made Wildflower. You said you made that record, I'm paraphrasing because I've forgotten, but you said you made it to really sing. That early on, Bill Bottrell had said, you know, hold it back, make it less professional. I mean,
yeah.
am I messing this up?
No, not at all. You know, my first record, I had been a jingle singer. I knew how to sing, and in his estimation, sometimes that could equate with being generic. You know, some of the greatest singers in the world, or some of the greatest artists, aren't the great singers. They're the voices that you hear and you immediately know that that's them. And there is something to that. My affectation on the first record wasn't really an affectation. It was the fact that I was, you know, kind of sauced a lot. But, you know, it definitely told a story. I mean, it's an authentic story. You know, it was definitely all there. It was documented. That's what records are. They are calendars. They capture a moment if you're showing up and you're allowing yourself to be present. You know, this record is definitely about range and about melodic stretching, and that was definitely intentional. You know, I've had a lot of shows where people come up to me and they'll say, God, you're so much a better singer than you're on your records. And I know, it's like when people come up and say, oh, you're so much prettier than in your pictures. It's like, thank you, I guess. But it's having produced myself, sometimes the last thing I would get to would be the vocals, and I would be married to the rough mix, and I'd just be used to hearing it, and so I would let it go. But that doesn't really cut it these days. And I do enjoy singing. I enjoy reaching the notes. I enjoy, you know, showing off a little bit.
But you'll also leave the scratch in there. You'll also leave.
I don't mind that. I did a couple of songs with a producer before I made this record, and he played me the mix of one of the songs we did, and I was like, wow, I sound amazing. I hate it. They had auto-tuned and just taken all the spirit and the life out of it. So I was like, no.